Juan, we began this week with you and Bill Ayers going back to 1968, talking about the protests of the time. And as we begin to wrap up, can you share your thoughts about this week?
Well, you know, I think one of the things that struck me most was the level, as I said, of choreographed mass spectacle of this convention that would be really worthy of Leni Riefenstahl, the famous Nazi Hitler's filmmaker and propagandist, in terms of controlling the narrative that the American people receive of what the Democratic Party is about. We've seen that both the Republican convention and the Democratic convention show the two faces of American capitalism. On the one hand, with the Republicans, you have a party of white supremacist capitalism, of anti-immigrant xenophobia, of patriarchy, and of war on the working class. And now, this past week, we've seen the party of multiracial neoliberal capitalism, for a party that seeks a kinder and gentler form of mass deportation and border militarization, and one that is even more aggressive in the imperial policies of the United States than even the Republican Party, if you consider that. And both parties sort of having a disconnect with the rest of the world. I was stunned by all the chants of U.S.A., U.S.A., U.S.A. throughout the Democratic Convention, when the reality is that the United States has never been lower in its prestige and never more discredited around the world than it is today, as a result of, especially of its the war in Gaza, but of all the attempts at regime change and controlling other countries and forcing other countries to do what it wants. And it reminds me constantly that one person, one vote is a dangerous concept because there's always the possibility that the masses of people will act in ways that the rulers don't want. So the necessity to control the narrative, to control what is the people consider possible, is so important to our ruling classes, and that's why they invest so much time and so much effort in this choreographing of spectacle to somehow or other prevent the people from thinking of other possibilities. And so I think that that's what had most impact on me, and also the fact that the social movements have had impact. I think Kamala Harris's choice of Tim Walz was a direct response to the sense among this multiracial neoliberal wing of capitalism that they've got to somehow or other placate the masses of the people and bring the young people back into the fold. And so I think they've attempted to do that. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks. But I think that the choice has never been clearer between the two forms of capitalism. And we'll see what the American people decide in the coming weeks.
Your final thought on that, Barbara Ransby?
I agree. I was nodding and amening as Juan was commenting. Yeah, I mean, two faces of capitalism, because we see, you know, it's very hard to be enthusiastic about this moment in the Democratic Party with Gaza and everything else. And I think the cynicism of this orchestrated consensus at the convention is one example of that.
Well, we're going to ask you to stay for our second hour. We have a lot more that we're going to bring everyone. The historian Barbara Ransby teaches here in Chicago at the University of Illinois. She's going to stay with us. That does it for the first hour of our 2-hour broadcast. A very happy birthday to Democracy Now!'s Executive Director, Julie Crosby. We've been hosted this week at CAN TV, Chicago's public access television and media production facility that has run Democracy Now! For so many years throughout the greater Chicago area. A very special thanks to our CAN TV crew, Darius Hillman, David Tainer, Jason Bryant, Jeremy Fry, Jim Knightright, Rocio Santos, Imani Payne, Kenny Nelson, Alan Voss, David Greenleaf, Lynette Rodriguez, Keith McDonald, Anita Targus, and Marissa Moffett. And special thanks as well to the Democracy Now! Crew here in Chicago, Mike Burke, Renee Fel, Sharif Abdel Qaddus, Messiah Rhodes, Nermeen Sheikh, Maria Taracena, Sam Alkov, Marie Astudio, Hani Massoud, Hannah Elias, and Dennis Moynihan. Back in New York, Democracy Now! Produced with Tammy Warrenoff, Tarina Nadura, John Hamilton, and Robbie Karen. Special thanks also to Becca Stelly, John Randolph, Paul Powell, Mike DeFilippo, Miguel Noguera, Hugh Gran, David Prude, Dennis McCormick, Matt Ely, Anna Ozbeck, Emily Anderson, Julie Crosby, our director, and Mimi Goodman with Juan González for another edition of Democracy Now! Here in Chicago.